the Lions Pride of Jozi Rugby podcast with Clinton Scott.
Evening everyone, Clinton Scott from Lions Pride of Jozi podcast in collaboration with MEGAFOON Sport. And yeah, we are in a good space at the moment with two big victories last week against Ulster and this week against Edinburgh. So the Lions are really looking good. I mean, we beat Ulster 35-22 last week, and this week we went one step further and thrashed Edinburgh 55-21. It's got to be one of the best 40 minutes I've ever seen from Lions rugby, definitely post-Ackermann era. 7 scintillating tries scored in that first half, backs and forwards combining, scoring off general attack, scoring off counter-attacking. It was just next level. And then going into the break, you wouldn't expect the coach to have too much to say to them, to motivate them, except that just keep on doing what you're doing. And then for some unknown reason, they came out in the second half, took their foot off the pedal, allowed Edinburgh back into the game, also with some silly penalties we gave away. Osanati and Frankie both said in a press conference this week that they can't put their finger on why that happened, but they have learned from that and they realize that it doesn't matter how far you're ahead, you cannot let the opposition back in. So yeah, but the Lions will be going on tour with a spring in their step. They leave tomorrow for Wales, where they face Dragons on Sunday. And the Dragons aren't really a team that has really put fear into opposition. They usually hover around the bottom half of the log. But had it not been for an 85th minute try from the Sharks, they would have beaten the Sharks last Sunday. So we cannot take any team lightly on any given day, especially when we're playing away from home in torrid conditions, which we will face. A week later, we move to Italy, where we face Zebre in Parma. There again, it's a team that hasn't really set the competition alight. But 2 games ago, they beat Leinster, which nobody saw coming. And fortunately for South Africans, the Stormers brought them back down to earth last weekend with a big victory. So we're going to have to make sure we keep our foot on the gas for a full 80 minutes in all of our games, not let opposition back into the games, and just, if we've got a lead, keep it going. I believe we can beat both the Dragons and Zebre, getting bonus points, so we can get 10 points from these 2 games, which will then catapult us up even higher on the log. We're sitting in the 6th position at the moment, which is nice for us as a union, but it's a long season and the Lions will need to replicate this week after week, ensuring we stay in the top half. Our last game on this section of the tour will be against Leinster. We all know how tough they are, but even if we can get a bonus losing point against them or just get 1 or 2 points from that game, it will be regarded as a huge success. Then the URC takes a break for a month when there are the November internationals taking place. We will then fly back to Ireland to face Munster at the end of November before we move on to our games in the Challenge Cup, where we face Ospreys, and then we come back to South Africa to face the French side, Section Palois. So the Lions have got a lot of rugby coming up. We need to just make sure we're rotating players all the time, keeping players fresh. So the squad that was named to go over on our tour was most players that we expected to see there. I'm glad to see that the talented tight head prop out of Skuman has been included. I'm also glad to see that Heiko Polman is coming into the mix now. And there's 2 players that have returned that we haven't seen for quite a while. Ruan Dalport, who plays lock and flank, as well as the exciting Richard Kriel is back. And that's a timely return for him, together with Edwell, seeing as though Tapio Mafuro will be out for quite a while. So players that had not been included in this touring squad, obviously Ruan Fenter, who had a shoulder op, but apparently it was a successful operation, and he'll be back in 4 months' time, so we'll wish him all the best with his recovery. Tapio Mafura, who tore a calf muscle, he'll be out for 4 weeks. Sivakoma also had an injury, which see him out for 4 weeks. Morgan O'Dear will be out for quite some time, as well as Morne Brandon. And then the Lions were hoping that Kate Volater would pass a fitness test to join the tour, but he pulled a hamstring, it seems, in our last game against Edinburgh, and they don't want to take any players on tour that are not 100% fit and that cannot play in the first game. But by the time we get into the Challenge Cup in December, a lot of these players that I've just mentioned now could join the squad overseas, and we'll see some rotations. After the Challenge Cup in December, we still face the Stormers before Christmas. And yeah, then obviously the URC continues together with the Challenge Cup in January. So the Lions are in a very good space at the moment. They just need to keep their foot on the pedal, just stick to their basics, keep ball in hand, let those last passes stick, make their first time tackles, and just play together as a team. There's a great vibe in this camp, I've heard. You can see it in their body language. They're playing for each other, they're playing for the jersey, they're playing for the badge. It's awesome watching them. And yeah, down the line, guys, I'll also be doing podcasts with our former Lions players on the page, chatting about their careers at the Lions, their highs, their lows, some funny moments, and also speak to them about life after rugby. A lot of them are coaches now since they left their playing days, like Andre Pretorius for one. So yeah, it'll be interesting to get them on board, and also some supporters, so we can have some chats about some upcoming games that passed, and just get a lot more people involved in these podcasts. Just looking at this last game now, before we go on tour, to give you some stats. We scored 8 tries in this game compared to the 3 that Edinburgh scored. We also had 12 line breaks compared to Edinburgh's 2. And funny enough, Edinburgh were dominating territory as well as possession, but obviously not the scoreboard. In our set play as well, we did very well. We won 100% of our line-outs, 100% of our scrums. So Baden Pieterse and Julian Redlinghuyse are really getting the hard work done in our training there. On our defense, I would imagine that Jacques Fourie is pretty glad about the stats there. We made 162 tackles. We missed 20, but we only conceded 3 tries in those 20 missed tackles. And then just some personal player stats. Our leading ball carriers in this game were Kieran Horn and Jared Keynes. They each had 10 ball carries. And not far behind them was Darian Landsberg and JC Pretorius with 9. Line breaks, I mentioned earlier, we got 12 line breaks, and the players that were leading those stats was Kieran Horn with 2, JC Pretorius with 2, Ras Makwani had 1 line break. And then on the defensive side, our players that led those stats was Jared Keynes with 19 tackles, Frankie Horn with 17, and JC Pretorius with 15. Now, you'd have noticed JC Pretorius' name coming up quite a few times, and hence the numerous man of the match award that he's won. This player is just going from strength to strength. We know what he was like as a sevens player when he played for the Blitzboks, and he was asked this week in a press conference, how did he adjust from sevens to 15, and was it difficult for him sitting on the sideline and not getting game time? And he said he knew that it wasn't just going to be an easy ride in. He would need to see how the structures and the systems worked at the Lions, and he says he's very grateful to Jaco Kriel for guiding him into the 15-man game again from sevens. And there's a lot of people that compare him to a Kwagga Smith, and he'll be the first to tell you that Kwagga Smith is a legend. He's proved himself at provincial level, he's proved himself at the Springboks, and he looks up to him as a player, and he said he will never be a Kwagga, and Kwagga will never be a JC. So he wants to carry his own ID and have his own identification going forward as JC, and everybody must know this is JC. So yeah, a well-deserved man of the match again for him, and it's great to have somebody like Lorenzo du Plessis who's come into the mix and also blowing down his neck. So it'll keep all these players on their toes, and that's one thing that's good about the Lions now, is that we've built a lot of depth. A season or 2 ago, there was concern about our depth, but now there seems to be almost enough cover in every position.
The Lions Pride of Jozi Rugby podcast with Clinton Scott.